A car company that I have said, well, it's not really a car company. A car brand that I have said multiple times on this podcast will never exist is now advertising online,
Hmm.
but I still think I'm right. We'll
Still
get to that.
skeptical?
Yeah,
Who are
still a
you?
skeptic. I am Phil Royle. I am one of the co-hosts here on the podcast and the blog. I've been doing this for however long I've been doing this for in the automotive world, generating content in some form or fashion. And also, I haven't discontinued our store yet. thewhatcar.com/store. I haven't discontinued that yet. I need to look into pricing and how things are being affected because it may turn out that every t-shirt that you buy to help support the blog and the podcast actually costs us money at this point. I'm not completely
Yeah.
sure how all of that works. But I do know if you go to youtube.com/@thewhatcar, that doesn't make us money really either. But it doesn't cost us money for you to watch our smiling faces on that channel. So that's all of the self-promotion I'm going to do. Ed, you self-promote.
Oh, self-promote. Ed Sanchez. I want to say, let's mix it up a little bit. 15 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Current day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co-founder and contributor.
On the socials,
On
I
the
have been
socials.
seeing,
We are on the socials.
we are, but I have been seeing ads for Afeela.
Okay. So
Now,
previously known as Sony Honda.
yes, I mean, it still is Sony Honda as far as I'm
Sony
aware.
Honda Mobility. Yeah.
So I didn't look up any of this information, but what have they been to CES now? Two times or three times
Uh,
with their car?
as Sony Honda. Well, it started out like way back. I want to say this is like 2020 or 21. They showed Sony, Sony showed the concept of a plan that they did at the time in collaboration with Magna. Um, and they didn't announce the Honda collaboration till later. But
Yes.
anyway,
So they've been bringing this to CES for a couple years, and I think this last year was just a.
it's
I don't
kind of
think
a
they.
refresh. Like
Yeah, they didn't really.
they finally let people sit in it.
Yeah, they
Not
didn't bring
me.
anything else to the table. It was just like, and we're gonna start selling these things, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, Honda. They're just using this as a way. Sony's looking for a way to get their software on vehicles because there's a lot of
hmm
money in the data and the production and all of that.
hmm
Honda's looking to have somebody fund their EVs. This is my theory. Somebody
hmm
fund their EV development, and Sony looked like a good sucker to them. So,
Ooh, ouch.
so they made this partnership, and Afeela was born.
hmm
And I was like, "Ooh, I don't really know if any of this is gonna
hmm
happen." Then Honda had its promissory note with Nissan, which fell through. Honda wanted to consume Nissan whole,
Yeah.
and Nissan didn't like that, I guess. Those were all rumors,
Yeah.
but so that deal
But
kind
that
of fell
CEO
through.
is long gone. So
And
anyway.
I said at the time, if the Honda Nissan deal goes through, Honda's gonna kick Sony to the curb, and they're
hmm
just gonna go with Nissan, which has a lot of good EV tech,
hmm
or EV tech than Honda has,
hmm
at least publicly known,
hmm
because Honda's EV tech, at least in America, is GM.
Yeah.
Uh,
Prologue. Yeah. Prologue and the
so
ZDX. Yeah.
yeah, so now though I'm doom scrolling, and I keep seeing Afeela popping up
hmm
of come and I don't think it was test drive. It was like find more information, come to an event,
hmm
and maybe it's ride along, maybe it's test drive. I don't know, but on these ads, I don't know if you've seen them, but
I haven't.
before we have talked about how there's no there.
Yeah.
That what does this Afeela bring to the table? And so far, I can't figure any of it out. There's not an integrated PlayStation. There's not, uh,
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the plan. I mean,
well, in the ads.
yeah.
So I was saying that they haven't really.
Yeah.
They're not communicating well what they're bringing to the table. Other auto manufacturers are not already
hmm
bringing to the
hmm
table, and so you would expect in their ads that they would tell you some of this. Why
hmm
you should
hmm
come and look at this car. Nope.
hmm
Nope,
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
And it's
Hmm
to the point that these are sponsored ads on things like Facebook,
hmm
and they're one of them had like no comments and 300 likes or something.
Hmm.
And I'm like, or maybe it
They're
wasn't even
paying for
300.
this. That's pretty sad.
It- It's incredibly there. I think
Yeah.
more people are aware of Fisker and
Then
the
Afeela.
ocean than the Afeela. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say this. I think a lot of people are still scratching their heads about Afeela. Um, it was launched to a lot of fanfare, and to your point, they've shown various iterations of it for probably the past 3 or 4 years at CES. So there's been a lot of build up and a lot of hype and a lot of anticipation. Then they announced pricing, which for what it is and the specs on it, it seems kind of expensive for basically an unknown brand. Um,
Which is crazy
and
because it's two huge brands and they've
yeah,
somehow managed to make a brand that nobody
yeah.
knows.
And also the value proposition is kind of, and I mean, to your point, I'm sure like there's a lot of technological sophistication in the car, but they're not communicating that well. They're not communicating the value proposition of the car. Or even my, if this is just my hunch, this is just kind of my spidey sense. If they do anything with it, if it survives another year, they will end up doing a deal with either Uber or Lyft or some ride hailing company to sell them, you know, a couple thousand of these as part of their, you know, autonomous, ride hailing experience thing. And then it's going to be like, sensory overload with all the full width display and
That's the
play.
best argument for
Yeah.
this that I've heard.
Yeah. I think that's, like I said, if it survives, I think that's what it's going to be. Is they're basically going to be the supplier to a ride hailing fleet. And that's, I guess, in a roundabout way, if they even want to pursue the consumer market, that's how they will get the cars out there, get get the awareness out there. But I'm wondering if at this point there it's not even really going to be a consumer brand.
Yeah, I don't even know though if they've got the data to do what you just said. I think that's the best argument for it,
Well,
but
but
I don't even know if they got the data to do it.
they wouldn't have to though, because if they piggybacked with an Uber or Lyft or Zoox or
Oh, you're not
whoever,
talking autonomous, or are you
yeah,
talking? Okay,
autonomous RoboCab.
so you think
So
that Uber
mhm.
would have the
Or
data?
whoever or Waymo or
Waymo's
yeah,
connected to
they
GM. Oh,
well, I mean,
is
I'm
that
saying all
is
of
that where
those.
the technology comes from?
Well, I don't know. I mean, all
Is it
these
the Honda
companies have their
GM?
own. Who knows? I mean, all these companies, these ride-hailing fleets, each of them are in various stages of maturity in terms of their technology stack, in terms of full, like I guess what you'd consider level 4 plus, you know, full-on
Yeah,
robo taxis. I would say the most mature at this stage is probably Waymo, um, but they already have agreements with. They bought like the last whole production run of the iPace. So most of the Waymos in the wild right now are iPaces. Previous to that, they had the Pacifica hybrid. I think they're planning now. I don't know how tariffs are going to, getting back to the whole tariff thing. They were planning on using kind of a custom built Zeekr model that was like purpose built for autonomous taxis, but originally that was going to be sourced from China. So I don't know. So I mean, maybe Afeela could swoop in and say, "Hey, we got this. It's not going to have a 150% tariff." They could even make it domestic. I mean, Honda has a very well-established manufacturing footprint in Ohio, so they could decide to build it, in the U.S. So I don't know. I just the prospects of Afeela as a consumer brand look dimmer and dimmer to me.
yeah. I think I said a minute ago that Waymo was GM and it's Google, but they had GM had Cruise, whatever it
Cruise
was. They
automation, which
yeah,
which they've
which
dumped.
yeah. So that was where I
Yeah,
was going. I wrong company, but that
yeah.
was what you just sparked there. Is Honda through its GM connection
Hmm.
and the Afeela, does this relaunch Cruise in some form or fashion? Like I was trying to get to like
Well,
how
I,
can they
I
get to
think the
that
way they would do that,
technology?
so basically Cruise was subsumed into GM. They fired or let go a lot of the Cruise staff, but they kept some of the core like technology. They kept the core technology and some of the core like engineering talent. But I guess the thought is they're going to incorporate that into Super Cruise. Um, Basically all the learnings they had from Cruise automation, but they could potentially license that to Honda or Afeela or
Yeah.
whoever, that technology for, basically a robotaxi fleet. Who knows? But
Yeah, no,
I
I
don't.
think there's
Yeah.
many different weird connections in this that but the point being, go and click on the Afeela ad and go and ride in one of these things
Yeah.
and you know, I can't say I did. Uh,
No, I tried. I tried to get on the list at CES, and I guess I missed my chance. So, oh well.
okay, so you and I both live in California.
Yes.
And California is now, we've always had exemptions for, it's now doing really well for emissions. Like it used to
Hmm.
be really bad for smog, like 40s, 50s, 60s. And then they started cracking down. And
Hmm.
now it's still got air
A
issues in
few
certain
days, but
areas.
it's like 5 days a year
Yeah.
versus
Well, it
300 days a year.
depends. If you're in like San
Yeah.
Bernardino or out in
Yeah.
Palmdale or whatever, there are pockets of bad still. But for
Hmm.
the most part, it's done really well. And a lot of ways that that's happened is through these carve outs that California's had, where they can
Hmm.
dictate CARB can overrule the EPA.
Stricter emissions standards
Yeah,
and stuff. Yeah.
well, Republicans have been trying to get rid of that, even though Republicans created it.
Ironically. Yeah.
They've been trying to get rid of it. And so I was a little bit confused by this, and I think I misunderstood what happened when Governor Gavin Newsom in
Hmm.
2020 said, okay, 2035, 100% of vehicles will be, new vehicle sales will be
EVs. Yeah.
EV. I read another article that said it's actually 80% and 20% will then have to be plug-in hybrid.
Hmm.
So either
Yeah.
they moved the cheese or I
Well,
just
I
didn't
mean,
pay
this gets
attention at the
back to
time.
the whole thing of electrified versus
Yes.
electric.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
largely electric. Well, now
Yeah.
the Trump administration is trying to take the whole thing away and saying California can't have a waiver
Hmm.
to do its own thing. Have they've not actually overturned it yet. This is Congress trying to.
No. So I think the current, as of this recording, and again, this is a very fluid situation. We
And
may have
everything we
been,
talk about on this episode or in this show that's political usually gets overturned by the time the
yeah,
episode airs.
or
Just keep
changes.
that
But
in mind. Yeah.
so basically, this was part of the big beautiful bill. We'll get those hateful comments on YouTube now for my horrible Trump impersonation. Um, so in that, they basically gutted the EV sales incentive. Actually, it was kind of a triple whammy. They did that. They're adding $100 surcharge for hybrids, $250 surcharge for EVs, presumably due at the time of registration. And on top of that, I think this was part of the same bill, is they're trying to revoke California's waiver, which, by the way, dates back almost 60 years. It dates back to the Nixon administration. And I think concurrently, that it was when Ronald Reagan was governor of California. So to your point, I mean, ironically, created by conservatives or well, I don't know if conservatives, Republicans, but created by Republicans now trying to be overturned by Republicans.
Hmm.
But
Remember back in the day where environmental issues were not political, they were actual like fact, and now they've been politicized into,
oh
well, it's
yeah,
not really
that's
happening. Hey, guess what? You don't have to go that far back in time where everybody agreed that there was a hole in the ozone and we needed to do something
yeah.
about it and we need to get rid of the CFCs and do all that. Like the world agreed on these
Well, but I
things.
mean, but to your point, the 60s and 70s in California, the air quality was so horrible. It was not a partisan issue. It was agreed to, like, we have to do something. This
Hmm.
is, you know,
But I
yeah.
guess all those photos from back then are just fake news at this point.
I guess anyway. Long story short, so this has already passed the House by a pretty thin margin. Um, so they're still trying to reconcile the House and the Senate bills. So this could be defeated in the Senate, or revised. Um, I think it's probably a pretty safe bet the uh, purchase tax credit is going away. I don't I don't see that surviving. Um, the
That's the federal one, though. I mean,
Yeah.
California can still offer whatever it wants. I
No,
don't think they can turn
if
over
they, but
overturn.
I think California is like what, like 20 billion in the hole the last couple of years. So
Eh. Comes at 20, was
I
was
don't I
20
don't know if
billion.
they can I don't know if Newsom can afford to play Santa Claus, but anyway.
He still
Um,
does.
well, I know. Um, so there's that. The surcharge may be decreased. It may be like $100, which, by the way, and again, this is, I won't go too far down this rabbit hole. I actually think $100 annual surcharge for EVs is actually reasonable, because I texted you, was probably about a week ago at this
Hmm.
point, and I actually kind of crunched the numbers on basically how much an average driver would pay in gas tax. And I think we decided it came to around like 104, $105. So
Yeah, it was more
yeah,
complicated than that because California takes its cut and price of
yeah,
gas is more here and whatever. But yes, it
but
was
for the
somewhere.
federal
Yeah,
portion of the
yeah.
tax,
For the
the
federal
federal
portion.
gas tax comes to give or take about $100 a
Yep.
year for an average driver. So I was like, you know what? When for road maintenance, even as an EV driver, I'd kind of be okay with that. I wouldn't love it, but it's like I get it, you know.
Hmm.
But to me,
It's fair.
it's fair. But to me, $250 is just vengeful. It's just like, haha, we're gonna stick it to those hippies,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
it's proving a point. It's like giving the tax cut on diesels that Vance wanted to do. It's
Yeah,
just to stick it to the man. It's not to actually solve an issue.
yeah. So anyway, that's, but you know, I'm gonna get off my soapbox about that. Um, yeah, this is gonna be really interesting because, you know, this president dates, like I said, dates back almost 60 years. So this would be the overturning of, more than a half century precedent. Um, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I don't know how well this would hold up. I don't, it's fairly unusual for states, not states' rights, but like, I would say California's exemption is, in the greater scheme of things, kind of an anomaly in terms of a state having a special status where their their rules exempt or preempt federal.
Yeah.
So that's fairly unusual. So I don't know. I'm sure this will go to the courts in some fashion. I mean, Newsom has already said they're going to file suit, but now in terms of how that's going to work through the system, and if it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, who knows? But yeah, we'll see.
I can't
Um,
say I'm completely against the idea of
of a national.
repealing some of California's emissions
Hmm.
freedoms that they've got
Hmm.
to a certain degree. I don't want them to be politicized, but I want them to make sense.
Hmm.
And there was a thing, and I'm not a big RFK fan, but I believe it was him who was
Hmm.
talking about fluoride in the water,
Hmm.
and he's against that. And I was reading
Hmm.
about that, and there was
Hmm.
a court ruling that was like, all right, when fluoride was put in the water
Hmm.
at the time, look at how things were at the time.
Hmm.
And you didn't have fluoride in toothpaste. You didn't have fluoride in the water system as you do now.
And
You didn't
everyone had
have
snaggle teeth.
yeah, you didn't have fluoride in like bottled waters.
Yeah.
You didn't like fluoride was not there. So
Hmm.
fluoride came in the fastest and best way to give that to the public and
It was
improve dental
municipal
health
water
care was,
supply.
I mean,
Yeah.
yes. So now though, fluoride is in all of the dental, in all, like almost all the toothpaste. It's
Hmm.
in like a bunch of bottled waters. Apparently, this is just me based off,
Hmm. Hmm.
reading this article. Now it's a completely different landscape of where we are
Hmm.
versus when fluoride was originally put in. So there was a court case, and the judge said, "Hey, I'm not against fluoride. I'm not for fluoride, but
Hmm.
the landscape is different now. It needs to be reevaluated, and it should be reevaluated,
Hmm.
periodically. You
Hmm.
should revisit as the world changes."
Hmm.
So with that, that is why I'm not against the
Hmm.
idea of this.
Hmm.
Is we are in a very different world now. Cars do not pollute as much now as they
Okay,
did
but
then. But what happens if you take away some of these requirements?
yeah,
Does it go back to polluting? Does it not? Is the federal requirement now so strict that realistically it's only you need to the world is different. It used to
yeah.
be in the 1950s and 60s you would walk around LA with a cloth over your mouth and it would like there's photos, there's archives
Hmm.
of all of this
Hmm.
stuff. That is not the world we're in today, and vehicles are far more efficient now than
Hmm.
they've
And cleaner.
ever been.
Yeah.
So is it time to reevaluate? Don't just
Well,
axe it. Is it time to reevaluate?
if
But
I
of
would
course, they
say
won't do that. They'll just
no,
say
well,
political, boom, blow it all up.
no, I would say under any other administration, I would say it would be, you could make a rational case for a unified national standard. And in fact, under, I think it kind of started under Obama, but also into Biden, they basically tried to harmonize the federal standards to align more closely with California. But I think what Trump and presumably Duffy or Burgum or here's the other whole thing that's really confusing is between like the EPA, the DOT, like there's some like which agency is in charge of what and who makes the rules and like they have to, so like the carb standards are different from like or like not carb but oh what's the gas guzzler tax, right? How they calculate that is different than how they calculate like the MPG sticker for some reason. It's really weird because it's like one or DOT like is a DOT formula, the other is an EPA formula, and it's really weird. Anyway, but bottom line is the Trump administration is actively trying to roll back policies and that were enacted under Obama and Biden. So what we're potentially facing is the prospect of rolling back a lot of like the fuel economy standards, uh, emission standards, so forth. So it's not that it's just resetting back to a rational level, but even below that again. So
Hey, we'll see what happens.
yeah. So
Not
this,
like we can control any of this stuff.
yeah, exactly. Anyway,
And we've spent so much time on that.
why don't we skip this next one?
Okay.
We're gonna do a quick blow by.
Yeah.
I guess for a while the UK had what they called the Tesla tax, which was, speaking of surcharges, an additional surcharge on EV sales. But EV sales have kind of tanked, so they're considering taking that away to kind of boost EV sales. Anyway, enough said on that.
Yep.
All right. Next one. Oh, so GM. So the worldwide leader in LFP battery, lithium iron phosphate battery production is CATL, Chinese company. So they have the lion's share of that market, and they're, I guess, the company most synonymous with that technology. But it looks like GM may kind of circumvent that to partner with either LG or Samsung to build LFP batteries in the US. I'm sure tariffs have absolutely nothing to do with that.
Well, I also saw this and was like, Samsung and LG are Korean.
Korean companies.
Yes. Yeah. So how
what?
World like chain supply, it's
supply chain, yeah.
Supply chain. It's complicated.
Yeah.
And so the idea of, well, we just make batteries here. You know what? I know nothing about this topic, but I would be willing to put a bet on not 100% of this will come from America.
No.
And when you partner with Korean companies, they're probably looking at the world as somewhere to supply all of the elements and then get them together and then do the final assembly somewhere. Assembly's got to be somewhere, but you're going to be getting parts from Australia or, I don't know, Africa or wherever. There's
South America.
It's not as simple as, oh, we're just going to make them here.
No.
It's then going to be, you need this like parts passport that they're doing in Europe on vehicles where you've got, 12.25% of this whatever component comes from here, and it's complicated.
Yeah. So again,
so this doesn't sound, it sounds great, but it doesn't solve, without knowing anything, I'm going to say it doesn't solve the problem of US production.
It doesn't solve it completely, but my observation of Trump is he's very transactional. He's very kind of quid pro quo, for lack of a better term. So you
to bring back a first term,
he's very like, okay, if you're willing to make a deal with me, I'll make a deal with you, and this and that. So already, I don't know so much for LG and Samsung specifically, but I know with the Hyundai Group, they committed a significant investment to the U.S. in terms of building a steel plant in Louisiana and expanding their manufacturing, I think in Georgia, by quite a bit. And I think he's like, well, okay, we'll cut you a little slack because you made such a significant commitment. So I don't know if it's going to be something like that where they're like, oh, we're going to commit, let's say $10 billion or whatever, and like, okay, we'll give you guys a break.
$10 billion dollars in an airplane, and then he gives them a break.
Yeah, the flying palace, yeah. So yeah, yeah, no, but I think at least near term, I think a lot of companies, if it's feasible and it kind of pencils out, they're looking at onshoring production of components. Now, again, this could be totally out the window in 4 years. We get a new administration. They're like, you know what? We're getting rid of all the old tariffs. We're going back to the Trump second term economic policies. Who knows?
I mean, it's going to happen. Whether it's the next term or the term after or the term after, parties flip and flop.
Yeah.
And they roll back all the other stuff. So guaranteed,
Yeah.
guaranteed this will get, all this stuff will get rolled back.
Well, and the thing is Trump is very fond of executive orders. So, but the thing about executive orders, as quickly as they can be signed, they can be reversed under a subsequent administration. So a lot of this stuff, I'm just signing this big, beautiful executive order with my big Sharpie. What's to say the new guy won't do the exact same thing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm undoing everything Trump did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So this makes it very, very tricky for companies, because a lot of these investments are years or decades long investments in terms of lead time.
Billions of dollars
Yeah.
and a decade in the making. And we could be 2 presidents or 3 presidents later.
Yeah, exactly.
by the
So
time
it's
this happens.
really tough. It's like, okay, what do we do? Anyway, so there's that.
Well, you just flip flop like GM's been doing constantly. That's what you do. You just flip flop.
Yeah.
Stellantis, they flip flopped.
Oh, they flipped. What's his name? Carlos Tavares out.
Yes, I guess
a couple months ago.
they flipped, and then they're hoping the new CEO isn't a flop.
Yeah, there you go. So new guy, Antonio Filosa, I guess he's been with the various iterations of Stellantis, Fiat Chrysler, Daimler, Chrysler, whatever, for 25 years. So that's quite a while. Before this latest stint, I guess he was CEO of the Jeep brand, which I would argue is probably one of Stellantis' stronger brands in terms of recognition and so forth globally. Ram, I would say, is a pretty successful, well-known brand, but it's largely limited to North America. Whereas Jeep, it's seen as an American brand, but Jeep has really, in the past couple of decades, massively expanded their global footprint in terms of models and markets.
And they do spectacular because they're
Yeah.
known for, they've got this giant enthusiast
Mm-hmm.
group that they've built up,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody fully acknowledges the build quality is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they all love it. Like
They
the
all love
brand
it.
is amazing that it's a Jeep
And
thing.
ironically,
It just falls
too-
to pieces. Mine have all leaked. Like,
well, the thing too is what's kind of surprising, at least with the Wrangler. I mean, granted, it's limited to one specific model, but the resale on the Wrangler rivals like Toyota.
yeah.
They're very, very highly sought after and hold their value really well. But to your point, they don't exactly have the best reputation for quality, but
And
people
everybody,
don't care.
it's not, it's an open secret. Like
Yeah.
everybody laughs about how horrible the quality is, and then they go and buy more.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean,
anyway.
if this guy's been responsible at all for that, like harnessing that at his time with Jeep, that's great. You
Yeah.
want to be able to build crap and have people ask for more.
Well, I'm hoping he aspires to more than that, but yeah, there is a little bit. I feel Stellantis has a little bit of a turnaround in the works, but again, a lot of it. Again, I'm going to be careful with how I phrase this, but a lot of it is kind of in parallel with the rollback of like the Biden era policies. Like they're talking about bringing back the Hemi. I just read something today. I guess next month they're kind of teasing the comeback of the Ram TRX. And some people think that's going to be a larger announcement about bringing back the Hemi, which for a while people thought was like dead and gone. That effectively, under Tavares at least, the plan was to replace it with the Hurricane Turbo Straight Six, which, from what I haven't driven one yet, but all the reviews I've read are very complimentary of it. It's very smooth, very powerful. But, some people are like, I want a V8.
Yeah, I think technically it's superior in every way,
Yeah.
but it's not a V8.
It's not a V8. It doesn't sound like one. You can't say it's got a Hemi,
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so it'll, he's got a lot on his plate in terms of like turning things around, restructuring, kind of building the brands back up, increasing sales. So anyway, I have no idea how EVs are going to factor into that, other than the fact they recently canceled the Charger Daytona RT. I guess they're only going to be selling the Scat Pack at least, because nobody bought the. Anyway, so anyway, speaking about a brand turnaround. So the predominant narrative, I would say, I don't know, the last year, is that Tesla is going down mostly because of Musk's weirdness and kind of association with Trump, among other things. Um, you know, but care to guess the top three selling vehicles in California?
Oh, they're all going to be Teslas.
Well, 2 out of 3.
Okay. So what are they?
Model Y still tops the charts. Not EVs, all cars, all models.
Yeah, but we're crazy out here.
Yes. So Model Y is number one. Model 2 is not a Tesla. Well, according to the rumor mill, the Model 2 is a Tesla, but the second best selling model in California. Care to guess what it is?
And it's a Tesla, but not
It
a
is
Tesla?
not a Tesla. Number 2 is not a Tesla.
I guess like a BMW or something.
Toyota RAV4.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
There you
And
go.
number three is a Model 3.
Huh.
So have their sales taken a hit? Probably, but they're still pretty dominant. And I can tell you, driving around, I'm sure it's probably similar where you are, even though you have said you've noticed a shift in your neighborhood. But around here, I mean, I would say every third car is a Tesla. I mean, that's how dominant they are in some areas. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of them have the "I got this before Elon went crazy" sticker on them. But,
Yeah. I saw a rainbow one
still,
of those the other day. It was a vintage Tesla on it. It was pretty
yeah.
sweet. Yeah, I'm seeing fewer and fewer Teslas when it comes to EVs around here. I'm seeing more of other EVs. People are still buying EVs.
Yeah.
That's not decreasing, but but then there's some people, like one of the guys that when I go for a run, he started off with a Model 3, and now he's got a 3, a Y, an X, and he just collected his Cybertruck. So he's
all in.
he's all in. He's got a flush, whatever it is. It's like he's
Yeah.
got the whole hand. So
Does
there's
he have
people
his
like
Trump flag in his front yard?
that. No, there's problems with you can be successful but have a negative trajectory. So you can be number one. Like Toyota is a prime example of that they are like number one kind of in vehicle sales, whatever. I haven't looked at the numbers, but
Globally,
I mean,
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty decisive.
But you look at the trend, and I believe it's not positive.
Well, I mean, if you break it down by market segment, yeah.
Yeah, so you can be the gorilla, but still be concerned. You have to be concerned if you're going to keep the success. And I think that's where Tesla's at. I'm not saying the company's failing. I'm saying they're sure set up for failure. If you were going to turn a company around from very successful to not very successful, they have just written the roadmap on how to do that.
Yeah. That's going to be the textbook business case for how to damage a brand.
Yeah. And I think they can turn it around instantly as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with the cars. I don't think there's anything wrong with the technology or any of that. But boy, they've been doing a good job of damaging the brand. And so they're selling well, but the trend worldwide is very negative right now. And
there's more competition. I mean, it used to be they had a virtual monopoly on EVs effectively. And now there's plenty of other choices now.
And we said years ago, like Tesla was like 60% or whatever it was of the EV market. They were like huge. That their percentage hold is going to decrease. It has no choice. It's always going to go down. But that doesn't mean that their sales numbers aren't going to go up. It's just
Even
the market's
those
getting
have been
bigger.
going down lately too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we were saying
But
this
they
like
could-
3-4 years ago, is that you can actually go from 75% market share to 40% market share, but be selling
More
10 times the vehicles because the competition came on.
EVs,
And if anything, Tesla proved the viability of the market. They are
Mhm.
their own worst enemy. They created their own, uh,
Brain damage.
well, their own competitors.
Yeah,
Everybody started
true.
doing EVs
And
because of the
you
success
could
of
even
Tesla.
make the case they're enabling it by kind of open sourcing NACS.
Yeah, that
So
seemed like a
now
great idea at
now
the time.
the protective moat they used to have is no longer there. It's now, oh, now
Yeah,
everyone can use it.
before,
Yeah.
I would tell people if you're going to road trip, whatever, you buy a Tesla. The NACS is just what you've got to have. You know, if
Hmm.
you're going to charge at home all the time, whatever, it's a second or third car, it's fine, whatever. But now I tell people, well, if it doesn't have the NACS plug on the car, just wait a year.
Hmm.
If you like the, whatever it is, the Porsche
EV6,
or the, well,
Ionic
the
5,
the
whatever.
Porsche,
Yeah.
the ID4, if you like the ID Buzz, if you like the Blazer, if you like all of these EVs and it doesn't have an NACS plug, just hold on to your car for another year
Hmm.
and don't get the Tesla. Get this thing. They've taken away their own competitive advantage. And at the
Hmm.
time, it made sense that they could get federal funding. But
Hmm.
now all the federal funding is going away. So now
Hmm.
Tesla's in like this a horrible position of they've given away everything.
Hmm.
And they're like, they just shot themselves in the foot. It was a huge faux pas that nobody really saw coming. But the CEO of the company aligned himself with the person who was going to do it.
Yeah. So should be interesting how this turns out. So I don't know, talking about brand, I don't know about brand damage, but well, no, actually, this is kind of a story of brand damage. But uh, DeLorean. So, uh, so going in the Wayback Machine. Um, so John DeLorean got involved in some shady business deals, kind of damaged the brand. And then Back to the Future came out, and all of a sudden it was like this
Mm-hmm.
like cultural icon out of the blue. So, and then it was bought by some company in Texas and some. So they're trying to, I guess, bring back the DeLorean. This particular one. Now, there's a couple of different iterations. There's the quote official DeLorean, and then there's something else. I don't know what the current status is, but I think it was the daughter of John DeLorean is
Yeah.
trying to do her own thing.
Yep. She was trying to bring
Um,
back the true DeLorean
yeah,
without
so
the
I don't know
just,
what's the
yeah.
latest status of that is, but this is the four-seater kind of. The proportions are a little odd, I think. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's long. It's a four-seater. Anyway, I think they're calling it the Alpha 5. Anyway, so most places say like, oh, you $500, $2,000, cash deposit to reserve one. So I guess to reserve one of these, if they ever make it, you got to buy like some crypto coin thing. Yeah, that doesn't sound scammy at all, does it?
No, it worked out well for Haley Welch. We'll do it for cars
The
too.
Hoc coin.
Yeah, that because
Well,
that
now like Trump's in on the game too, so it's like
I
I guess
guess
it's the thing to do now.
yeah, do that at your own caution. I guess with this, the car looks cool and it's got according to the pictures. We'll link in the show notes. It's got the doors like the why can't I think of the name?
Model X.
No, hypercar maker Koenigsegg.
Koenigsegg.
They have a hybrid something or other, and it's like a three-cylinder 1800 horsepower
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
hybrid something or other. It's got doors like this. Super cool. They debuted that it was like late March 2020
Hmm.
when they debuted that car. It's very unfortunate timing, but it had doors like this. Super cool. Yeah, do it at your own risk, I guess. Just don't. I don't know. There's anything with
Now you can
crypto.
get I guess a DMC coin or USDC, whatever the heck that is. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Well,
no, and then you put it and get this a slush wallet. That
what?
doesn't sound. Look at the notes there.
I don't even want to.
Yeah, that
That's
doesn't sound scammy at all, does it?
yeah,
A slush wallet.
yeah. I don't know. The DeLorean name may live again, whether it's through this company or the daughter. I don't know.
I don't know.
Everything we talked about, links in the show notes. What else is in the show notes will be a link to thewhatcar.com/store where you can buy merchandise to help support the podcast and the blog or potentially cost us money, depending on how tariffs are working right now. Go to youtube.com/@thewhatcar to watch our smiling faces. And there you can like and you can subscribe and you can leave a
Some
comment.
hateful comments about my
Yeah.
Trump impressions.
Hateful comments are welcome there. Walker.com/advertise for DeLorean can come in and
Sell their NFT token.
yeah, they explain to me why that's a good idea. But they will have to pay for that not in
The real,
in
we'll take
crypto.
US dollar
Yeah.
greenbacks.
I mean, I'll take other foreign currencies too, but I don't think I'm going to take crypto, at least not right
Not the DMC
now.
coin.
Not the DMC coin. Yeah, I'll take certain cryptos, but not, maybe not that. I'm done. Are you done?
Yeah, next week, who knows? Something new all the time.
Yeah. More Trump impressions. People love it when you
More,
do that. by the
they're
way.
huge. Maybe the best. Until then,
See ya.
all right.